Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 20 of Not the Worst Knitting Podcast. My name is Michelle, and I am the knitter and knitwear designer behind meeshyfrazz Knits. Today we are back to a normal podcast episode. If you watched last week, then you saw my video where I chatted about my most and least worn fall knits. It is perfectly fall weather now. Actually, the sky is beautiful. I keep glancing out because I can see there's like beautiful rippled clouds in the sky. It's cool and crisp, but it's not raining. We actually had a little bit of sun today. I took a walk outside earlier and it just smelled like fall. You know, when you get that, I don't know, you take a breath and you just smell fall. I mean, I know it's basically the smell of dying leaves, but I love it. It's romantic. It's amazing. It's fantastic. And I'm just so thrilled that it's fall. And so in today's episode, I've got a bunch of different things to talk about, some of which you already know, and then I think there's only one new project. There's actually a few things going on that I have to share, and then a few things that are going on that I can't talk about yet, but are exciting nonetheless. So I guess we can get started by chatting about what I'm wearing, which is my Under the Ivy Cowl, which is officially out. When I'm filming this, we still have a couple of days before it goes live. It technically will be going live for me tomorrow. But this episode obviously will air on Friday, and that means that this pattern will already be out and available. Testing just wrapped on this a few days ago, and everything went really well. It went really smoothly. There were no issues, and also, oh my God, it was so fun to see everybody's versions. There were so many, so if you're curious, definitely take a look at the project pages on Ravelry because people came up with some really gorgeous varieties of this. Just the yarns that they used, swapping out the different colors. Some people opted to do Surrey for the bands of color work. Just a whole bunch of different things people did. A couple of people chose not to do the Mobius style and just did a tube cowl without the twist, which is an option in the pattern. You can either twist it or you don't have to, and the amount of repeats you do kind of depends on if you want the twist or not. I had some that opted to do theirs a little bit longer, some did theirs a little bit shorter. So that's kind of what I love about these little color work cowls. Like, you can make it however you want to fit whatever your preferences are, whether you want something just small and tight around your neck, or if you want something that's kind of long that you kind of double fold over. The options are there for you with whatever you want to do. The version that I did, I used Blue Sky Fibers Woolstok Light, and I used the colors Driftwood, which is the main color, and then the green, which is the contrast color, is Wild Thyme. So I used, let's see, for the main color, I used 371 yards, and the contrast color, I used 227 yards. So you've got some options there. I had a few testers who just used up their scrap yarn for the contrast color, and so each band was a different color, and it came out really beautiful. And then some, they opted to do different colors for the flowers than they did for the vines. Just really, really cool. So this is out, it's available on Ravelry and my website. I am going to do a special discount code just for my YouTube viewers. So take a look below. I'll have a discount code here. It'll probably be on screen, and then I'll also have the discount code in the show notes. It'll have all the information for how long that will be available. So that's just kind of a special thank you for watching, and I just really appreciate it. So yeah, I feel like this came out just in time for me to wear now that it's like properly fall, and so I think I'm gonna get a lot of wear with this because it just feels very autumnal. Okay, so editing me realized that I didn't chat about the origin story of the naming of my Under the Ivy patterns. So if you've watched my episodes, then you are already familiar, but I was just really inspired by like these vintage gardens, and while I was working on it, I just kept thinking about the secret garden. And so it made me decide to get the book. I had this book as a kid. I don't know what happened to it. a lot of my books from childhood have gone missing, and so I was actually really happy to be able to buy this book again. I loved this book as a kid. I absolutely love this book. I'm an only child, and just the idea of, you know, being left to your own devices and going to this world where you create what you want of it and kind of improve the garden and improve yourself and all of that, it was just really appealing to me, and this story was really something that I really connected to. And so as I was working on this and thinking about this book, I was just flipping through it. I was struggling a lot to come up with a name for this pattern. I had tried a few different things, all based on like vintage gardens, secret gardens. I tried to use a few of the names of the gardens in here or of the people, but nothing really felt right. Like, I don't know, calling this the Misselthwaite Cowl felt like a mouthful, felt like something people weren't gonna know how to say or spell. And also, you know, there were a few patterns that existed already with that name, and it's such a specific name. So I was flipping through it, and I came across this passage, which, let's see, can I get that in frame? Yeah, I'm just gonna show that there. I came across this passage and it just sold it for me. So it said, she was inside the wonderful garden and she could come through the door under the ivy anytime, and she felt as if she had found a world all her own. And reading that, I was like, that's it. That's the name, Under the Ivy. She came in under the ivy and she had a world all her own. And so that is the origin story of the naming of my Under the Ivy Cowl. I guess it's not the origin story. I'm not a superhero. Like, what are we doing? That is where the name originated, is from that passage in The Secret Garden. So that is everything going on with the Under the Ivy Cowl. The corresponding, can I point? How do I do this? Nope. There we go. The corresponding Under the Ivy Beanie is still in testing. That will be in testing for really only about another week. And then that will be coming out soon as well. So keep an eye out for that if you wanted to have kind of the bundle. And that beanie comes in a sport weight as well as a DK. Essentially, if you use the same yarn you used here, which is a Woolstok Light, it holds it double in the beanie for a thicker fabric. Or you can do single with a sport weight. I mean, you can also just hold it single with a DK as well. There are options, and you have different sizes based on the gauge. So I'll talk more about that when that's actually coming out. So we'll move on. Let's see, what do I have to talk about next? I feel like I'm starting out with accessories, but then we're gonna work into actual garments, don't worry. And I promise not all of this will be about my designs, but I've got a couple of, it's fall, so everything is happening, and I've got all the knitting mojo and not enough time, and so everything is happening. But my holiday beanie, which unfortunately still has no name. I actually came up with a name for this and I felt pretty good about it. And I sent the second round of edits back to my tech editor with the new name. And I don't know what I was thinking, because she did a very quick Ravelry search and was like, actually this name has like 200 results on Ravelry. And I'm like, I know I searched it. So clearly I must have put a typo in or something. So I don't want to use that name because it's just got so many other projects with that name. I thought I was being clever and I was nowhere close. But this will have a name soon. However, for now I'm just calling it my holiday/winter beanie. And this is ready for testing. So I will have a form below that you can fill out if you are interested in testing for this. This is such a quick knit, so I'll go over all the information about it if you're curious. So these two beanies I knit with Blue Sky Fibers Woolstok North. This is a very Woolstok heavy episode, and I had no intention of that, but so the blue version, which is the size 1, this is knit in Thermal Spring. So like I said, Woolstok North in Thermal Spring. And then the size 2 version is this yarn, which is the Cranberry Compote. So let me see, I ended up doing it in 2 sizes just because anything smaller or larger with such a bulky yarn felt like they weren't really gonna work. Either it was like way too large or way too small. I feel like with the amount of stretch that this beanie has, these 2 sizes were pretty good at covering all of that. Like I can actually wear both of these comfortably and get different results. So if I wear size 1, which is, the size 1 was the one I was thinking originally as the size that would work for my head, and it does, but it fits me very snugly, which is actually great. I really like that. It's like a very nice snug beanie. But this one, it fits me in more of like that slouchy style, which is a size 2. So I kind of like having both options just depending on what I feel like doing. So the size 1, that used 61 yards, which, let me see. So one of these skeins is 107 yards. So it used a little over half the skein. And then the size 2 used 75 yards. So it used about 3/4 of the skein. But I mean, you saw, this one is a little bit looser with how I rolled it back together. So there's actually less yarn in here. It just doesn't, it's like a messier wind, but this is basically how much I have left of both of these. So not enough to do a full hat on its own, but I actually have been wondering about maybe doing a fun color work beanie with the yarn I have left. But it's great because you can easily knit a hat with one of those skeins, and it is super bulky yarn, which means that this flies. Like, it flies. I mentioned this before, but like either one of these I knit in 2.5 hours, maybe 3 if you're counting everything. So it's just so quick, and I think these are really great for gift knits. But I also think there's something about in the height of the winter when it's really cold outside and you've just got that like bone chilling wind, maybe it's snowing, I want a big chunky knit. I like my beanies for when it's chilly outside, but when it's like bone chilling, freezing cold, nothing will warm you, I want a big, super bulky hat. I just love these for that. And so, like I said, this is ready for testing. So I think it'll be probably not a super long test knit just because of how quickly it is. I mean, I'll give enough time so that you can get the yarn and knit in your own life and time frame. Like, I get it that like you can't just go home tonight and knit it, but it's not something that's going to be super laborious or time consuming. So if you just want a really quick, fun knit, this is a great option. So definitely check out the form below if you want to apply to test. And then also I'm thinking, I mean, I'm sure you've noticed with, it's kind of cut off, but you can sort of see it. With most of my beanie patterns, I tend to add a pom-pom just because I love a pom-pom. I love it. And so I'm probably going to do the same. I actually found this like sort of reddish. I normally do natural looking pom-poms, but this one is like sort of reddish, which I just thought was so fun. Let's see if I can hold this up. It's just got like a tiny hint of red, which I think will be really fun. And I was actually curious. I'd love to get some feedback from you guys. Like, are you a pom-pom beanie person or a non-pom-pom? So, pom or no pom? I think I love a pom. I just always love a good pom-pom on this. I'm looking at my screen and it seems like I'm a little blown out because of the light behind me, which I wasn't expecting. So I really hope this is showing up okay. And if I didn't mention also, I think I mentioned this in my last podcast video where I was talking about this, but this is a very simple textured knit. So you're just doing knits and purls. You aren't cabling or anything like that. And it creates this very subtle chevron effect, which with the lighting the way it is, I don't know if it's showing up super well. And I am hoping we're probably going to go out and take photos of this in the next couple of weeks. So when I have those photos, I can share them. My husband takes all my photos and he does a great job. So we normally schedule little photo shoots. And actually, we did the photo shoot for this at a botanical garden, and it was just dreamy. So so yeah, if you are interested in testing for this, fill out the form. Let me know what you think, pom-pom or no pom-pom. I would love to know your thoughts on that. And let's see. Okay, so that is it for my like self-promotional stuff. Also, all of my Blue Sky Maker projects. Those are the 2 projects for the year plus the beanie. And so moving on to the next garment knit on my needles. This is completely unintentional, but I am very clearly in a green kick, and maybe not even just a green kick, but like a green and beige, green and white kick. So the next pattern that I am starting is the Robinia Sweater by Anne Vencel. So this is a top-down drop shoulder sweater, and it's knit in bulky weight. This is a colorwork pattern that I think she released it last year, or maybe it might have been 2 years ago. And as soon as I saw it, this has been on my radar since it came out. Like, it's just, I love a good colorwork sweater. I love geometric shapes and patterns. I love bold prints. So this really called to me, and it's just something that I've been thinking about. And when it came time, basically I finished my field day cardigan, so obviously I had to have another garment knit on the needles. And I looked at a few options, and this was just the one I kept coming back to. So when I went shopping for the yarn, I actually had it in my mind that I was going to do blue and white like her pattern photos. If I haven't already, I'll pop up some photos of her version. That was just the version I fell in love with. Like, I just thought it was amazing. So I went to the yarn store and I fell in love with this yarn. So I should back up just a little bit, actually. The one thing that I had hesitated on with this pattern is that she holds 3 strands together to make a bulky weight yarn, and I'm not willing to do that. Like, maybe you are, and if you are, like, good for you. I'm impressed. I don't want to be bothered with having all of those yarns together. And not just that, that's a lot of yarn you have to buy for this. So I really wanted to get this in 1 yarn. I was like, maybe I can do 2 yarns if I need to do like a DK plus a surrey or something to hopefully, probably more of like a worsted with a surrey, if I can find something I really like. But I did still want to get the that kind of fluffy look, because when you look at her photos, you can see it does have a nice halo. It's got a nice fuzz to it. And my yarn store just started carrying this, what is this called? It's Illimani Amelie. So that is the tag. And like, they just started carrying it. And I had gone into the yarn store like a week before, and I'd seen it, and so this had been on my radar for like, what could I make with this? And then I was thinking about it, came back to this pattern and was like, okay, so this is, I don't think it says on here, but this is technically a bulky weight yarn. It is 56% mulberry silk, 40% baby alpaca, and 4% merino, which means it's incredible. Like, it's so soft, it's drapey, it's beautiful. It's really a beautiful yarn. So I kind of had it in my mind that this was going to be the yarn I was going to use. And I was thinking like, okay, I don't feel like this is going to be quite as bulky as what the pattern calls for. So like, maybe I could grab this and then also get a surrey to hold with it. But I got this yarn and I was like, no, I'm not holding anything with it. This is just so beautiful on its own. I'm not even going to do that. And plus, you know, it was with the surrey that was there without me having to order something. I couldn't find a really good match with the green. But anyway, so I went there. In my mind, I was going to get the blue. I'd already seen there was a navy in this yarn line that I thought would be really nice. It still had those like dark flecks in it, which I thought really mimicked the pattern photos really well. And so that was just what was in my mind. And then I got there and they only had 1 skein left of that color. But so I went with my friend, and my friend pulled this out. She was like, hey, by the way, they have it in green. And I was like, uh-oh. Because yeah, she was right. As soon as I saw the green, I was like, this is actually really gorgeous together. And not just that, it feels like a PNW winter or fall. I mean, clearly it has my heart. So I saw these two together and was like, yeah, let's go with this. So came home, did my swatch, because you should always swatch. And the fabric is gorgeous. I used the recommended needles, knowing that the chances of me getting gauge were very, very slim. And I did not get gauge. So the pattern gauge is 16 stitches and 23 rows per 4 inches or 10 centimeters. And my swatch is 18 stitches and 24 rows per 4 inches, which means that, so by rows, I was actually only off by 1 row, which surprised me. But my stitch gauge was 2 stitches off, and 2 stitches off per 4 inches is going to lead to a significant difference in the size of your garment based on the measurements. So sat for a little bit and thought about it. I decided that after doing this, there was no way I was going to change the needle size because I think the fabric is perfect. And that meant that I needed to do some math, which I did all over. Now this is just the, this is just the materials and abbreviations, so I'm not giving anything away. But I did math all over this to figure out, based on my gauge, I took all of the stitch numbers for the different sizes for your final circumference, as well as neck openings and all of that. And I did what the measurements would be at gauge, and then what the measurements would be at my gauge, and then from there, how much ease I would have. So this led me to another rabbit hole because, so she has 2 versions of this pattern that she did, 2 samples. So she has that blue one, which I absolutely loved, and then she's got a yellow one. I can't find what she recommends for gauge, but she basically has 2 different gauges here. So the yellow version of the sweater has 17 centimeters of positive ease, which is about 6.7 inches. And then the blue version of the sweater has 27 centimeters of positive ease, which is 10.6 inches. So definitely a different range there, depending on which way you want to go. Looking at that though, I was really in love with the blue sweater, just all around. The fit, the color, everything. I just loved the way it fit. And I had noticed that a lot of the pattern photos on Ravelry, it's fitting a little bit tighter. And I swear somewhere in here, I'm not seeing, but I'm pretty sure she actually recommends about 6 inches of positive ease. However, I think the 10 plus inch version looks really good on her. So my goal was actually to be somewhere closer to that larger ease. And that's a really interesting choice for me because I normally don't choose a lot of ease in my garments just because I'm a pear shape. And so I tend to like to keep things kind of trim up here. But I don't know, I think this is not a garment where I'm necessarily trying to look a certain way or fit a certain mold. This just looks like a really beautiful statement sweater, and I just kind of want to wear it with that level of ease. So I did some math, and what I came up with is that for the size 3 at my gauge, that would be 8.6 inches of positive ease. And then the size 4 at my gauge would be 12.2 inches of positive ease. So with that in mind, I was worried that 12 might actually just be way too much. And I feel like 8.6 is a nice in between the 6 and the 10 inches. So I am knitting the 3rd size, which is the size large. And that is to hopefully achieve really closer to the, like somewhere in between the size 1 and 2. So we're gonna see how that works. I'm feeling okay about it. I did make the mistake of not measuring my swatch before I blocked it. So I measured it after blocking, but I didn't measure it before. And so the one thing I'm nervous about is What I'm knitting on this is the front panel of the garment. Right now, this is coming out to be about, let's see, so I said I was at 18 stitches per 4 inches. This is coming at about 18.5 stitches per 4 inches. Now I actually expect that based on the fiber content of this, it is probably going to grow like what I'm assuming my swatch did. But it's interesting, this is the one thing I'm not sure about, is because it's actually a blown yarn, and so you can see it's like it's got that silk chainette in the middle. Now it's silk. It's silk, alpaca, and merino, and the merino is only 4%. So hypothetically this should stretch, but at the same time it's a chainette yarn, so it might not stretch because it's a chain, so like it doesn't really have anything else to do. But it could just be one of those things of the stitches kind of puffing out and like easing up a little bit once you've blocked it, where it's not really like it's going to stretch outward, but it's just going to kind of puff up. so we'll see. But either way, I've built in a little bit of extra ease for me. So if it ends up fitting a little bit more, a little bit tighter, it's okay, because like I said, right now my goal is 8.6 inches of positive ease, which is still more than I normally do. So we're gonna see how this one goes. I should have enough yarn for the increase in the size that I'm doing. Basically, you know, that's one thing you have to keep in mind. If your gauge isn't matching up and you have to do math and you need to knit at a larger size to get the smaller size fit, you're going to use significantly more yarn. I felt okay about this because after some extensive Ravelry research, it looks like a lot of people ran into this issue. I think just because a lot of people didn't want to have to hold a ton of yarns together. One, it's really hard to find all the yarns she recommends, and two, it's just a lot of yarn. It's a lot of yarn to hold, it's a lot of yarn to buy. So a lot of people did substitutions, and a lot of people ended up having to knit a larger size to kind of achieve their fit. So I actually wrote down, for everyone who actually wrote how much yarn they used and the size that they knit to, I wrote down those numbers, so I had an idea of, okay, at the large they use this much, at the extra large they use this much. And so I think I have enough yarn. So we'll see, to be determined, but this is bulky, so this knit up really fast. I just started this a couple of days ago, and this is the entire front flap. So now I need to work on the back flap, and I actually think I join it right away. So that'll be fun. Also, I really appreciated, this has been an interesting construction for me too. If you watched my last video, you'll saw that I had a weekender, which kind of has the same sort of fit, where it's kind of like a straight line across, and then you've got the seams here for the front and back. This I really appreciate has short row shaping in the front, as well as a couple of increases on the sides, and I'm hoping that what that means is that it won't be like suffocating me at the neck. I'm really curious to see how this fits. And then obviously, of course, there's going to be short row shaping on the back as well, but it's nice that this isn't just like a straight square, like there is a little bit of shaping there. And so I'm interested to see how that fits. And then there's like a tiny little bit of ribbing at the top, which is just a fun little neck detail. So very simple pattern to follow. It's just a very small chart, and look at those colors. I wish you could feel how soft this yarn is. It's incredible. It's so soft. It's very dreamy. So that is underway. Hopefully I will get the back flap started soon. And then I guess I only have one other project to share with you guys. There is another garment that I am working on, but I cannot share. I don't know how many details I can share, but it is a garment that I'm designing in collaboration with a local yarn store here that will be out in the summer. That's all I'll say. So it kind of sucks because I'm in the midst of swatching with that. I found a swatch I really like. We already chatted about the color that we probably want to do for the first version. And so we're getting that yarn ordered now, and it sucks because I would love to kind of talk you guys through that process and show you the swatches and talk about what it's been like to kind of come up with that design, but I really need to keep this one secret until really like right before it comes out. So I will say I'm still getting details, but there will be a secret test knit for that. I mean, it's going to be a while from now because I still need to actually write up the pattern and knit the pattern for myself and then get it tech edited and make sure I grade it as well. So we've got a ways to go, but probably my guess would be at the end of this year or early next year is when we'll probably be getting the test knit group ready for that. It will be completely secret, so you won't be able to share about it at all until release day. But, you know, if that's something you're interested in, make sure you sign up for my newsletter, because that's where any sort of information about test knits will get sent out. Any information about pattern releases, all of that will be in my newsletter, and there's a link for that below. So there is just one more pattern that I can talk about with you guys. And I showed this last time, and what I showed you guys, I told you was completely going to have to be ripped back and restarted. And now I have done that. And so we have my, we're tentatively calling this my Trim the Tree sock 2.0. So pardon the texture on the light green background. Obviously I ripped out that sock and then rewound the ball, but if you've ever ripped out a sock and then reknit with that yarn without washing it, you know, even without blocking it, just because the needles are so small and the gauge is so tight, it tends to make the yarn a little bit extra chunky until you block it. Like, it'll clean up in blocking, but you can see it's a little textured right now. So we did a few things. So one, I originally had a green cuff that went into that, and I didn't love that. Because it goes from green to white to green to white. Having the extra long green up here, I just wasn't loving. So swapped it out with a white cuff. Also, after chatting with Wendy at Hazel Knits, we went with a different white that she thought would go a little bit better. So this is just the Naked white, which is such a great name. Just for more of your all-around kind of like white base instead of anything with a hint. I was using linen before, and that had just a little bit of like a blue undertone to it, which I think the actual like Naked color, I think that works better. So new cuff color, this is all the same, but the other change that we did is in the last version, if you remember, I'd gotten through the heel and then I'd gotten to the blue bulb because these are all supposed to be vintage Christmas light bulbs. And what I had on hand was this navy. The colorway is actually called In the Navy. And this is all Hazel Knits Artisan sock. But it was too dark with the rest of the colors, especially because I had a really nice like vintage color scheme going with the vintage light bulbs, like that kind of, if you have seen like the big chunky C7 Christmas lights, and you know what I'm talking about, it kind of comes in that set of colors. And all of those felt accurately represented except this navy. It was just so dark. And so Wendy sent me a few options of blue that we could go with. And I decided I'm going to try this one first, which Meltwater is the color. So this definitely feels like that vintagey blue. She gave me a few samples of a couple of different blues if this one doesn't work out, but we're going to try with this one first. I do really love the blue with these other colors. I think it's a really nice tone. I just want to make sure that there is enough contrast between the blue and the green, because the blue lights do end up being on the green background. So that will be coming up soon. I'm at the heel portion, so I have to do the heel. My patterns typically come with two heels, which are the Afterthought heel and the shadow wrap heel. And I kind of prefer the shadow wrap heel for two reasons. One, when you're knitting in color work, if you do the shadow wrap heel, you do it right away and it doesn't hinder your color work at all. Sometimes it can be tricky to do an afterthought heel in color work, just because you have to make sure it goes in between bands, and you also have to make sure it's tricky. You can do the row right on a color work row, but then you're going to have to carry your floats every stitch on that row where you're going to be doing the pickup, because once you go to pick up, it's going to get really messy when you're trying to pick up the CC color, because you've got those weird floats going on. And then on top of that, like, I've found that knitting it through, knitting it through the back loop has helped to kind of hold the stitch and not make it weird. But basically you can run into some weird gapping issues when you're trying to do any sort of like pickup or Kitchener stitch or anything like that right onto a line of color work. So if you can avoid it, I really like something like the shadow wrap heel, where you stop, you do the heel, and you get right back into your color work and nothing is affected. So long story short, I will be doing a shadow wrap heel on this version, and then I have the blue next. And so I can't wait to see how that knits up, and hopefully the sock will be ready soon. As I mentioned in my last podcast episode, not my last video, but my last like technical podcast episode, Hazel Knits and I are doing a collaboration for this. It's a holiday collaboration, and so it will be a colorwork sock and a colorwork cowl. And the cowl it'll be the same pattern, but it will be in DK. So I'm finalizing this, and once this is finalized, then I will get the yarn from Wendy at Hazel Knits for the cowl, and I'll get going on that. I'm back and forth on the cowl type that I want to do. It's tricky, because what I like about this motif is obviously seeing it vertically, because you get those strands, those lines of the Christmas lights. And so ideally, if you just did just a tube, you cast on and then you just knit down, cast off, and then you've got your tube. But I prefer more of the like Mobius style cowl, where you're knitting all the way around, down, connecting it with Kitchener stitch, and then you're actually wearing it horizontally. So you're knitting it vertically, but then you're wearing it horizontally, which means that this motif that was originally up and down like this is actually now like this. And so that would mean that the Christmas lights would actually go like this. Now, seeing this on screen, I don't actually hate it. The beauty of Christmas lights is that you don't always put them on vertically, right? Like, you put them on bushes, you put them on banisters, and sometimes they do actually wrap around like this. And especially if you're doing a Mobius cowl with a twist, you will get some that kind of go in different directions. So I think I'm still leaning on doing the Mobius style cowl, but I would love some feedback from you guys on what kind of cowl you prefer, whether it's what kind of cowl you prefer to knit or what kind of cowl you prefer to wear. That feedback would be really helpful, just to kind of, see if what I feel is kind of the same as what everybody else feels. So yeah, I still have to think on that, but this will be coming soon, and I'm super excited about it because, one, I'm just excited for the holidays, and one thing I love about the holidays, I'm the person so after Thanksgiving dinner is done, I start decorating for Christmas. Like, if I can, the Christmas tree goes up Thanksgiving evening. If I can't, then it goes up the day after Thanksgiving. So I'm a big fan of Christmas decorations and all of the holiday decor. If you can see it, I've already got my pumpkins out for this year. They're sort of in frame, sort of not. I guess you can't really see them. I'm actually amazed. Bagel was up there earlier and he didn't knock any of them down, which I will consider a win. But yeah, so hopefully next video, this will be closer to finished, if not finished. I'm hoping to work on this a little bit more tonight. And Yeah, that does it with all of the projects I'm working about and what I can talk about. Um, let's see, for my book chat. So I am still working my way through the ACOTAR series by Sarah J. Maas. I am about halfway through book 3, which is called A Court of Wings and Ruin. Oh man, okay, I get it. I get the hype. I get why everybody's obsessed with these books. I'm so into it. It's so good. I feel like now that I'm in book 3, I'm so invested in these characters. And I just love, it's so true what everybody said. You really have to get through book 1 because it builds the story for the rest of what happens. And it's kind of terrible and insufferable. But once you get through it, everything that comes next is just so good. So yeah, I'm about halfway through the 3rd book and just really liking it. Not going to give anything away because I just think you should kind of go into it blind and just read it because it's great. So that covers what I'm reading. That's everything I have knit on. If you have stuck around until now, thank you so much for watching. If you are interested in test knitting, definitely take a look below. And also don't forget to check out my discount code if you wanted to get your hands on an Under the Ivy Cowl. And then also keep an eye out for the beanie that will be coming soon. So again, thank you for watching. If you want to get in contact with me, I am meeshyfrazz at meeshyfrazz on Instagram and Ravelry. I am meeshyfrazz@gmail.com, and you can also find me at my blog, which is meeshyfrazzknits.com. I will chat with you more next time. Thanks. Bye.